Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Aneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. In Pakistan, a top-level civil-military huddle has expressed concerns over human rights violations by Indian troops in occupied Kashmir. In the meeting, Army Chief General Javed Bajwa and Prime Minister Imran Khan also discussed security situation of the country. The two also discussed India's frequent violations of ceasefire along the line of control. Director General ISI Lieutenant General Faiz Hamid was also present on the occasion. Islamabad says India's anti-Pakistan propaganda and disinformation campaign have been exposed globally. Foreign Office spokesperson Zahid Hafiz Chaudhry said this during a media briefing in Islamabad. He also condemned unabated Indian state terrorism and extrajudicial killings of innocent Kashmiris. He said residents of the occupied valley have been subjected to a brutal military siege for 507 days. In India, Priyanka Gandhi and other Congress leaders were detained at a march in solidarity with protesting farmers in Delhi, while Rahul Gandhi met President Ram Nath Kovind and submitted 20 million signatures against the new farm laws. Braving harsh cold, thousands of farmers have camped against agricultural reforms at Delhi borders for 29 days now. Pakistan has reported 111 new deaths from the coronavirus in the last 24 hours, the highest single-day surge of the second wave. The nationwide toll has risen to 9,668, while the World Health Organization confirms that the new strain in Britain is much more infectious. Globally, the virus has claimed 1.7 million lives and infected more than 78 million people. Ethiopia's military has killed 42 armed men accused of taking part in a massacre in the western Benishangul Gumuz region. According to the country's Human Rights Commission, gunmen killed more than 100 people on Wednesday. Ethiopia has been grappling with outbreaks of deadly violence since Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed took office in 2018. And in football, AC Milan beat Lazio in a 5-goal thriller at San Siro to stay on top of the Serie A table. Ante Rebic and Hakan Çalhanoğlu scored under 20 minutes to make the scoreline 2-0 in favour of Milan. Luis Alberto and Ciro Immobile put Lazio back on level before Theo Hernandez scored a 93rd minute winner for Milan. These were the headlines. News in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. Start from Pakistan, where a top-level civil-military huddle has expressed concerns over human rights violations by Indian troops in occupied Kashmir. In the meeting, Army Chief General Javed Bajwa and Prime Minister Imran Khan also discussed security situation of the country. The two also discussed India's frequent violations of ceasefire along the line of control. The meeting reaffirmed resolve that the defence of the motherland will be ensured at all costs. ISI Director General Lieutenant General Faiz Hamid was also present on the occasion. Now, the Pakistan Army says a soldier was martyred while responding to a ceasefire violation by Indian troops along the line of control. In a statement, the Army's media wing says Pakistan dealt heavy damage to Delhi's forces in the Satwal sector. Earlier, Indian forces martyred a civilian and injured another 3 in a ceasefire breach along the LOC. Islamabad had summoned a senior Indian diplomat to register a protest. Now, Indian forces have killed 28 civilians in over 3,000 ceasefire violations this year alone. Still in Pakistan, where security forces have killed a terrorist during an intelligence-based operation in southwestern Balochistan province. The Pakistan Army's media wing says a soldier was martyred in exchange of fire in Awara district. In a statement, the military's media wing, the ISPR, said the forces apprehended one terrorist. It added cache of arms, ammunition and communications equipment was also recovered from the hideout. Earlier on December 22nd, security forces killed 10 terrorists in an operation in the same district. Now moving to India, where Priyanka Gandhi and other Congress leaders were detained at a march in solidarity with protesting farmers in Delhi, while Rahul Gandhi submitted 20 million signatures against new farm laws to President Ramnath Kovind. After the meeting, Gandhi said the opposition stands with the farmers. He said farmers will not go home until the laws are repealed. Commenting on the arrest of the party leaders, he said there is no democracy in India. Braving harsh cold, thousands of farmers have camped against agricultural reforms at Delhi borders for 29 days now. Now, the United Kingdom and the European Union are expected to announce a post-Brexit trade deal after 9 months of tense negotiations. Officials hope the deal will preserve tariff-free trade in goods between the two sides. It will also protect cooperation in other areas such as security. Fishing rights after Brexit have been one of the most contentious matters throughout the negotiations. The UK left the European Union bloc in January, but it remains under its trading rules until the 31st of December. Today was the final deadline to seal an agreement and avoid a possible no-deal Brexit. Moving on now, President Donald Trump has accused Iran of the attack on the US embassy in Iraq's capital city of Baghdad. In a tweet, Trump threatened to hold Iran responsible if any Americans are killed in subsequent attacks.
President Trump alleged that 3 rockets which failed to launch were from Iran. Responding to Iran's Foreign Minister Javad Zarif said putting citizens at risk abroad will not divert the attention from Trump's failures at home. Zarif also attached Trump's older tweets accusing former President Barack Obama of attacking Iran as a diversion. Meanwhile, the United States has also accused Iranian cyber actors of creating a website with death threats aimed at U.S. election officials. In a statement, FBI and the Homeland Security said Tehran aimed to undermine public confidence in the United States electoral process. Iran's United Nations mission spokesperson Ali Raza Miryusfi denied these allegations, saying Tehran itself was the largest victim of cyber attacks.
Now, US President Donald Trump has pardoned former campaign manager Paul Manafort and ex-advisor Roger Stone. This sweeps away the most important convictions under the long-running Russia election probe. This report has details.
In his final days in the Oval Office, President Donald Trump has restored to a spree of clemency. Among 29 beneficiaries is Trump's son-in-law's father, Charles Kushner. He was convicted of tax evasion and making illegal campaign donations. 26 of them won full pardons, while another 3 received commutations. While Stone, Trump's long-term friend and advisor, welcomed his upgrade from a commutation to a full pardon.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for giving me the offer. Thank you for saving my life, because I don't think at my age and in my medical condition I would have survived in a COVID-infested prison. The president has said on numerous occasions that he thought there was a good chance I could be exonerated. I agree with that. But this is a horrific nightmare when you realize that this investigation never had any legitimate or lawful beginning. It was a witch hunt.
Meanwhile, the UN says it is deeply concerned over Trump's pardon for 4 former government contractors. They were convicted in the 2007 Baghdad massacre that left more than a dozen Iraqi civilians dead. In a statement, UN Human Rights Office spokesperson Marta Hurtado said the pardons contributed to impunity.
Also, US President Donald Trump has vetoed the $740 billion annual defense policy bill. The move has potentially set up the first congressional override vote of his presidency. Trump objected to provisions that limit troops withdrawal and remove the names of Confederate leaders from military bases. He also slammed the bill for extending a liability shield to social media companies. Calling the 4,500-page act unconstitutional, Trump said it was a gift to China and Russia. Congress is poised to consider votes to override the president's veto of the National Defense Authorization Act. If it does not override the veto, it will be the first time in 60 years that the NDAA does not become a law. Now in Ethiopia, the military has killed 42 armed men who took part in a massacre in the western Benishangul Gumuz region. This comes a day after gunmen killed more than 100 people in the area. State media says soldiers seized bows and arrows and other weapons from the men. It also said the government has arrested 5 senior local officials in connection with security issues. In a tweet, Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed called the massacre of civilians very tragic. He announced the deployment of forces to eliminate the root causes of the problem. Moving to Nigeria, where officials in the Katsina state say the mass abduction of students was sparked by intercommunal feuds rather than extremism. Security advisor Ibrahim Ahmed said conflicts over cattle theft, grazing rights and access to water led to the attack. In an interview, Ahmed said semi-nomadic ethnic group Fulani carried out the attack. He added the attackers included former herders who turned to crime after being robbed by cattle rustlers. He said the herders used the kidnapping as a bargaining tool to settle local conflicts. However, earlier Boko Haram claimed responsibility for the kidnapping in northwest Nigeria. Moving on, France has sent warplanes to fly over the Central African Republic as the country braces for general elections. In a statement, French President Emmanuel Macron said Paris condemns attempts to disrupt this weekend's polls. The statement added the mission was requested by the CAR President Faustin Archange. Panic grips the capital Bangui as the upcoming polls talk prospects of violence in the former French colony. Earlier, Russia sent 300 instructors to train military personnel of the Central African Army under an existing agreement. The World Health Organization confirms that the new strain in Britain is much more infectious. This comes as the global number of deaths by the virus has crossed 1.7 million, with infections over 78 million. More on coronavirus in this report.
The nearly year-long coronavirus pandemic has been full of gloomy statistics with millions of deaths. For the second day in a row, the US set a record for COVID-19 hospitalizations with over 119,000 positive patients. However, the ongoing inoculation programs are bringing an encouraging tide as more than 1 million Americans received their first shot of the vaccine. Mexico has also received its first batch of the Pfizer drug, which was escorted by the country's armed forces from Brussels, while Canada has become the second country to approve Moderna's vaccine.
This morning, we got the news that Health Canada has completed their review of the Moderna vaccine and found it to be safe and effective. Canada has an internationally recognized process of independent review, and I know that our best experts have upheld this highest standard.
Meanwhile, lorry drivers who tested negative for the virus have begun boarding ferries at the port of Dover after France reopened its borders with the UK. The new virus strain has also been reported in Northern Ireland. Meanwhile, 2 cases of a new, more transmissible COVID-19 variant linked to South Africa were identified in the UK. The worsening situation, coupled with Brexit uncertainty, has left people's lives hanging in London.
We were supposed to go to France, but we decided about a month ago to stay here because we knew that it would be too difficult. I think at the moment COVID, but in the long term I think Brexit's going to be worse because obviously we can't go back. We live very near to here, so King's Cross, so we can take the Eurostar very easily, but I think they're talking about visas and all of these things.
Elsewhere, South Korea's early coronavirus success has caused it to scramble to contain the new wave, while Australia has tightened quarantine requirements for airline crew, now requiring that they stay only at police-monitored facilities.
Well, the new coronavirus has claimed 111 more lives in Pakistan over the past 24 hours. This is the highest single-day surge of the second wave. The country's death toll has risen to 9,668. The Health Ministry says 2,256 people tested positive for the virus overnight. It added there are just over 38,000 active cases in the country. Out of more than 465,000 countrywide cases, over 417,000 people have recovered. Meanwhile, the National Command and Operations Centre says the government is in contact with the world's leading vaccine manufacturers. In a statement, it said it will soon make a decision about vaccine availability at the earliest. More news coming up in this bulletin after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back now. Moving on with the news stories. US President Donald Trump has given national security awards to top aides for Arab-Israel deals. Trump awarded the medal to Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. National Security Advisor Robert O'Brien and Senior Advisor Jared Kushner also received the awards. The Middle East envoy and US ambassadors to Israel and the United Arab Emirates were also among the recipients. In a statement, the White House said thanks to their efforts, the region has finally moved beyond old conflicts. Under the US-brokered Abraham Accords, Israel has reached normalization deals with the UAE, Bahrain, Sudan and Morocco. Now, Morocco has urged the incoming US administration to preserve the deal sealed by President Trump earlier this month. The US agreed to recognize Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara and Rabat normalized ties with Tel Aviv. In an interview, Foreign Minister Nasser Bourita said Morocco think the Biden government will find a good rationale to preserve the deal. He said the next administration should continue a positive dynamic and nourish efforts for peace. Earlier, Morocco and Israeli officials signed several memorandums of understanding in Rabat. This has marked the establishment of diplomatic relations between the two countries. Now, China has launched an antitrust investigation into the Alibaba group. In a statement, People's Bank of China said financial regulators will summon the technology giant's Ant Group affiliate soon. Regulators warned Alibaba about its choosing one from two practice, which prevents merchants from offering products on rival platforms, and said it received a notice and will comply with all regulatory requirements. The tech giant added that its operations remained normal. Alibaba's shares fell about 9% in Hong Kong following the news. This probe is part of China's crackdown on monopolistic behavior in the booming internet space. A coalition of human rights groups has joined Facebook's lawsuit against Israeli spyware vendor NSO. The rights groups allege the company prioritizes profit over human rights. The organization include internet rights group Access Now, Amnesty International and the Committee to Protect Journalists. The group filed an amicus or friend of the court brief in support of Facebook's fight against NSO. Earlier, the social media giant accused NSO of having subverted its WhatsApp instant messaging service. Facebook said NSO hacked into the phones of human rights activists and dissidents worldwide. Now, Diego Maradona's autopsy has revealed no signs of alcohol or narcotics consumption at the time of death. The 1986 World Cup winner died of a heart attack on the 25th of November, aged 60. The autopsy said Maradona had problems with his kidneys, heart and lungs and was taking 7 different medicines to treat depression, anxiety and other ailments. The 1986 World Cup winner battled alcohol and drug addiction for much of his life. Just last week ruled that Maradona's body cannot be exhumed or cremated, in case DNA is needed at a later date for use in paternity or other cases. Now, British model Stella Tennant has died at the age of 50. Her family said Tennant's death was sudden and police have ruled out suspicious circumstances. The Scot made her name in the early 1990s on catwalks for designers like Karl Lagerfeld and Versace. She went on to become the face of Chanel and graced the covers of fashion magazines. Away from catwalk, Tennant campaigned to reduce the environmental impact of the fashion industry. She retired in 1989. Versace paid tribute to Tennant on Twitter, saying she was Gianni Versace's muse for many years. She is survived her husband, David Lasnet, and their 4 children. Now, in the US state of California, a mural is being painted to honor the work carried out by frontline medical workers during the pandemic. The painting was commissioned by medical scrubs company Barco Uniforms and non-profit Beautify Earth. Details in this report.
A superhero doesn't necessarily wear a cape. Sometimes they come in scrubs and face masks, and COVID proved just that in 2020. In California, Samir Arkanwal, also known as street artist Samir Ewal, is painting a homage to frontline workers against the pandemic. He began the image on December 14th and plans to have it finished by January.
This is pretty much to honor all of the health care professionals that's been putting their lives on the line day in, day out for the last 10 months. That's been just a nightmare, and within that nightmare we try to find some sort of hope, and that's the title of this piece is You Bring Hope.
He will be working over the holidays, including Christmas days, to get the mural finished. He is keen to make their facial expressions as real as possible.
The expressions, because I can only imagine, the how exhausted they are, dealing with this day in, day out. So I kind of wanted to just capture the emotion of, like the one on the end. She's ready, she's prepared to go to war, helping people out, and you can see her putting on her thing, and her eyes, she knows she's going in, to war basically against COVID, and this guy is just really exhausted, but they're there, they're like, we're here for you.
The mural can be found at 2010 Wilshire Boulevard in Santa Monica.
China has rejected media reports claiming Beijing's demands are complicating talks with the European Union. Beijing and Brussels are in talks to reach an investment agreement by the end of the year. In a news briefing, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin said talks were proceeding smoothly. A German magazine reported that Beijing's additional demands on nuclear energy have stalled the talks. The potential deal is also facing opposition from the incoming US administration of Joe Biden. In football, AC Milan beat Lazio in a 5-goal thriller at San Siro to stay on top of the Serie A table. The victory leaves them 1 point ahead of the city rivals Inter Milan, who would have gone top if Milan had dropped points. Ante Rebic and Hakan Çalhanoğlu scored inside 20 minutes to make the scoreline 2-0 in favour of Milan. Luis Alberto and Ciro Immobile put Lazio back on level before Theo Hernandez scored a 93rd minute winner for Milan. Juventus have won Serie A in each of the past 9 seasons, but they are in 6th and 10th point behind Milan after losing 3-0 at home to Fiorentina on Tuesday. And now let's have a look at the weather updates across the globe. And that is all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.